Welcome to JHart Modelworks. The holidays are over and it's time to get back to work on the Miura, so in this episode we're going to be focusing on the interior. Welcome to my workbench. Let's get started. So I'm not going to go through all the interior parts. I have cut all the interior parts and cleaned them up as best as I can. I'm just going to show you at this point some parts that I've done some work on. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with the steering wheel, which we went in and we drilled out the holes, got those opened up. I also went and flattened. There's a dome over the center of the steering wheel. You're just supposed to stick a decal. I am going to use one of those 3D emblems that is perfectly sized for this, and I'm going to use that instead. So I flattened that out a little bit so that it would have a flat surface to stick to and it wouldn't be all bunched up and bowed and whatnot. So we got that done. The headrests for this are hollow in the back, and for the most part you wouldn't see it for them normally, but since I have opened the vents up, the louvers, I've made it so that those louvers will be removable. With that being the case, you will actually be able to see inside that back glass, I believe, if you take the louvers off. So I went ahead and just filled those with some Tamiya putty. I really am trying to get away from the Tamiya putty. It shrinks. So I put it in and I flattened it and it shrunk. I had to put a second set in and I just gobbed it in there. And then I had to go back and file the crap out of it, which eats away at just, if you're using like the stick sanders, it kills the stick sanders. It just fills them with putty even if you leave it to dry forever. It's just, I'm not a fan of this putty, but I don't have a real good putty that I like. I kind of thought these were too big to try and fill with super glue. Those were some awful big holes. That would be a lot of super glue. So I went with this. If you guys got some suggestions on some better putty, some stuff that you like, let me know. We have our seats, which the seats have 3 seams on them on the sides that are not molded into the kit, so I went ahead and tried to scratch those in as best as I could, which I didn't do a very good job. It's a very odd, kind of a weird angle. The second seat came out better in my opinion. Our dashboard is in 2 pieces. There's the top piece and then there's this bottom piece, and I really tried to I had to decide if I wanted to glue this together or paint the parts separately and then glue them together afterwards. Doing them separately and gluing them together afterwards would make it much easier to get those decals in these vents. It also would have made it much easier to separate this, because this is going to be, the dashboard's going to be beige. And then this center section, not all of it, like starts right there. You can see that kind of line there. But this center section is all black. It would have been much easier to paint that separately had I not done it. But there's seams right here on the edges of, like there's a seam right there that I sanded out. There's a seam on each side of these instrument pods. You can kind of see it from the inside, but I smoothed it as best as I could on the outside. And that was much easier to do because I used Tamiya Extra Thin instead of, see, that's what it looked like. That's what this side looked like before I sanded and cleaned it up. I forgot to sand this side, which you're not going to see it anyhow, but I will sand it up anyhow just for general purposes. There we go, nice and cleaned up. So like I said, by gluing these together with the Tamiya Extra Thin, it allowed me to fill these, to basically merge these seams, and then I was able to sand it so that you don't notice it as much. So now we have our interior tub, and the kit has this back wall smooth, like all the way across here. But looking at reference pictures, it shows that there's definitely a raised area beside the seats, right over these sills. So I have gone ahead and I just took about 3 layers of some sheet styrene and stacked it up and glued it all together with some Tamiya Extra Thin. And yeah, it's about 3 layers of sheet styrene, stacked it up, glued it together with Tamiya Extra Thin, and then I just rounded off the tops a little bit to get that shape. That's about it for the pre-work. Now these are the door cards. I didn't do any real work on the door cards, but I wanted to show these because the way these work, you've got these 2 little notches here, and then you've got like this little area, you've got a little notch in here, and then you've got a ridge, and these sit right inside and they're perfect. It is an absolute perfect fit. There's almost no wiggle at all. It sits firm up against the side of the body. So from here, our next steps are going to be to go ahead and get some primer on here and then paint them. I am going with the Ferrari beige from Zero Paints. That's usually I use either the Ferrari beige or I do like a half and half between their beige and their interior saddle tan. I chose to go with the beige on this go around. I was a little concerned with that gold stripe. I don't want to blend too much with that gold stripe going through the car, but we will see what happens. Alright guys, so we've been working away on the dash here. Show those vents done. And those are going to have some chrome rings put around them. But one thing I wanted to point out is if you look behind the gauge clusters, you know, gauges going in here, and then all 6 of these big white ones are also gauges that have gauge decals. I like to put a coat of white in there. It doesn't have to be perfect coverage. It doesn't have to be, you know, perfect. It doesn't have to be perfectly round. It doesn't have to cover the whole area. Just cover, basically get some white in there, and that's going to help the white in your gauge decal really pop out a little bit better when it's got like a back behind it. A lot of times if you're doing like a black, or you know, sometimes even this beige can cause a white decal to be kind of off colored a little, so that white just really helps to clean up your decal a little bit. Also on the bottom, you're going to see those 5 dots at the bottom. Those are buttons, and in the instructions all those buttons have different colors on them, and for kind of the same reason, I like to put, especially when it's on a black background like this, I like to put just a dot of white in there on top of the buttons, then go back in with my color. The instructions are like clear red and clear yellow and clear blue, and I think either clear green or clear orange. Yeah, clear orange is one of the buttons. If you're putting clear colors or even the regular colors over this black background, they're going to be really dark and you're not going to really see them. But putting that little dot of just either white or silver on top of those buttons, then putting your color on top of it, even if it's not a clear color, even if it's like a regular red or a regular blue, just putting that white back behind there is going to make those colors pop out more, and they'll be much more visible against the black background of your surface. Alright, we are back, and as you can see, the gauges really pop out. That white stands up. I really do think that putting that white in that background really does help. Additionally, if you look at the bottom, these are all of those colored buttons. Those would not stand out like that if this were done on a black background instead of having the white on those buttons. I used to put in X22 clear into these light lenses, but I'm going to do something different, and I would like to thank Paul from the International Scale Modeler for this tip. What I have here is just a piece of sheet acetate, which I picked up very cheap from Amazon. The opening measures just under 5 millimeters. So what I did was I went ahead and set my display circle cutter, and this is in diameter. So each little mark is 1 millimeter. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've got it just underneath the 5. It's not quite at the 5. locator here. I don't want to waste a bunch. I'm going to spin this for quite a while because this acetate's kind of thick. It's much thicker than cutting, Tamiya tape or paper for making masks. So there we have our lens. Now I have gone ahead and test fit this and made sure that it fit. So I'm just going to take a little bit of Elmer's white glue. It's good old-fashioned Elmer school glue. Grab a toothpick. Now I just want to put a tiny bit of white glue in just a couple of spots where it won't be obvious. We're just going to set it down in there. Press it home, make sure everything's nice and smooth. And now we have our lenses. Will give us the actual appearance of a lens. Now I cannot cut the acetate small enough to hit these. I may go ahead and hit them with just a drop of X22 clear. I will probably just leave them though, they're not that big. But that is how I'm doing my glass lens covers now. Alright guys, so here we are. Everything is painted and ready to be assembled. We have our interior tub, which got that center console all painted up in detail. And we've got the carpeting is flocked in gray. We have our door cards. Got some bare metal foil on the trim, and the bottoms are flocked as well. We have our dashboard. And that acetate really looks the part on those lenses. Now I lost two of the rings, the metal transfer rings from the set. I replaced them with some gauge clusters from Model Car Garage. Had some rings that go on like the facings for smaller gauge clusters. They're not a perfect fit, but they're close enough that I don't think it's going to be that noticeable once it's actually in the car. The adhesive on these is really poor. In fact, this one is actually super glued in because I could find it. The other two fell off and just got lost. We have our steering column. I've brushed a little Molotow on that metal post there. There's some Vallejo silver here where the key is supposed to go. I scratched through some of that silver just to kind of give the impression of a keyhole slot. And we have our steering wheel, which I did go ahead and drill out those holes. The center is, I want to say, I can't remember if I used polished aluminum or if I used TS48 sparkling silver. I think it's polished aluminum. And then I used one of the 3D emblems for the steering wheel center. For the center console, there's a handle piece, which these bottoms get clipped off, and that's going to get glued in right in here. We have our emergency brake, a little button on the end, and we have our shifter. Got a little Lamborghini logo on the end of that. We have our brake pedals, which glue into the floor. There's a small area right in here where they get glued into. I'm going to actually have to scratch that out. So right in the center of where that another one of those metal transfers is. Back here we have, I believe those are speakers. Come on, camera, focus. There we go. We have our seats. And there's these seams that are in here. I tried to scribe them in. I don't think I did a very good job with them. And we have the headrests. And so I went ahead and filled the back on the headrests. And those are going to get glued back in just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all assembled, and I'll be right back. Alright, and here we are fully assembled. Got our back glass in. Everything is nicely in place. I did go ahead and throw in some brown Tamiya panel line accent color into the seats and also into the door cards. Just try and bring out some of that detail a little bit more. And I really do like that gray with the beige. That really goes in good. So that's going to wrap it up for the interior. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. Also, feel free to leave comments, feedback, critique, or anything else in the comment section below. I enjoy interacting with all my viewers in the comment section and try to reply to all the comments I receive. If you want to catch future videos, please consider subscribing to my channel and make sure you click the bell notification icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. As always, thank you for watching, keep modeling, and have a great day.